Laura from Laura in Bookland, and it is the beginning of the month, which means it is time for my wrap-up in TBR. I'm not sure if it's going to be 2 videos or just this one. I'll have to decide during editing. If it's too long, I might split it up. But first we'll do the wrap-up. If you've been watching my videos for like the last month, then you may know that I challenged myself to read 28 books in 28 days and do 28 reviews, or 28 days of reviews on the vlog. Neither of those things happened, but I did read 13 books this month, which I am pretty happy with that number, so we'll just get right into it. The first book I read was Hollow City by Ransom Riggs. This is the second book in the Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children trilogy, I believe is what it's going to be. I loved this book. It was fantastic. I won't talk too much about it because I don't want to spoil it, but it does involve the creepy pictures of the first, just like the first one, and starts off where the first one left off. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. Loved it. The next book I picked up was The Madman's Daughter by Megan Shepherd. This is the first book in the Madman's Daughter trilogy. It's about a girl whose father does sort of these evil experiments on animals, and he is pretty much shunned out of London, and he's presumed dead, and her family kind of takes a fall for this and, you know, doesn't belong in her rich society anymore. And then she discovers a boy that she used to be friends with back when her father was still alive, and just thinks that things aren't what they seem to be with him. This was really good, definitely a gross factor in it, but I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was for a review from the publisher, from Edelweiss, and that is Her Dark Curiosity by Megan Shepherd, which is the second book in the Madman's Daughter trilogy. Again, won't talk too much about this because it is the second book in the series, but it does start off, I believe, like a couple months after the first one leaves off. It's really good. The ending definitely leaves me wanting to read the third one, so I will definitely be picking that one up when it comes out. But I also gave that a 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read for a blog tour, and that was Undying by Valerie Grasheen. This is a love story involving zombies, and it is like straight out of a movie. The guy goes to bed talking to his love interest, and when he wakes up in the morning, all hell has broken loose. It was really good. I mean, it's a zombie book. I love zombie books. It's like 200 pages, very quick read. I read it, you know, in a couple hours. The only thing I had a problem with was the boy. He wanted to get home, but he only wanted to get home so he could profess his love to this girl who might not even like him back, and he wasn't even like really thinking, oh, I have to get home to my dad, or I have to get home to my brother and my niece and nephew. It was just this girl. That was his main purpose for getting back to the farm, was to save this girl and make sure she's safe. But other than that, I liked it, and I do believe it's going to be part of a trilogy or a series. I'm not really sure, but I will be picking up the next one just to see what it's about. So I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars. The next book I picked up was also for review that I got from NetGalley, and that was Fates by Lainey Bross. This is the first book in the Fates trilogy or series. I'm not really sure, but it is about a girl who lives in sort of a different world, and she is in charge of getting, like returning people's fates that didn't work out right to make sure that they happen. And then she does something wrong and she gets banished to Earth, and it is now her job to fulfill these people's fates and make sure that people have these chance encounters with other people, or people are reunited, or somebody who's supposed to die. She makes sure that they are in the car that they're supposed to be in when, you know, their car accident happens or whatnot. And then she meets this boy who is supposedly supposed to kill her, and all she's trying to do is get back home, and she thinks that if she stops this, that she is going to be able to go back home, and it's her final test. And it was definitely an interesting read. Wasn't the best in the world, but the ending did make me sort of want to pick up the next book if it comes out. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars also. And then the next book I picked up was just a quick graphic novel, and that was The Isle of 100,000 Graves by Jason. It's about a girl whose father finds a treasure map in a bottle at the ocean and goes looking for it, and he disappears, and her mission is to find out what happened to him, and she finds another bottle and makes it to this island by conning her way onto a pirate ship and tricking a man into helping her, and then she finds out that this island is actually holding a school for torturers and interrogators and things like that, and it is definitely interesting, and I believe I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars also. The next book I read was for review, and I didn't actually read it, so I'm not actually counting it, but it was White Space by Ilsa J. Bick. I actually DNF'd this about 3% of the way through, which is not a lot, and I know that. It was like a 560 page book, so I don't know, you do the math on how many pages that I actually read, but I did not like it all. The writing style was very weird. It was very hard to figure out what was happening, and I think it was like from a third person point of view, and I don't know, I really did not like it. I put it down. I didn't even want to deal with it. This is actually the second book by that author that I have DNF'd, so I will not be picking up anything else by her, unfortunately. But yeah, so that was that. I don't give star ratings to books that I DNF. But the next book I picked up was also for review from Edelweiss, and it was fantastic, and it was Uninvited by Sophie Jordan. I gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars. It's about a girl. She's a prodigy. She can play pretty much any instrument. She started playing the piano at like the age of 3. She goes to a private school, and during this time of her life that she lives in, they test for this gene that can tell pretty much whether you're going to kill somebody. It's called the kill gene. And she tests positive for it, and her whole life changes, and it was so, so good. I highly, highly recommend that book. Like I said, 5 out of 5 stars. So the next 3 books I read were all part of a trilogy. The first one is Article 5 by Kristen Simmons. This is about a girl and her mother, and there are articles that have to be followed in this dystopian world, and Article 5 is children are considered valid citizens only when conceived by a married man and wife, and they are breaking this article, and because of that they get arrested. This boy right here is a love interest, and I love the interaction between the two of them, and this book was so good. I highly recommend it. I gave it a 4 stars, but it's up there. I might think about changing this to a 5. It might be a 5 star. I think I'm going to change it to a 5 star. So, yeah. There's the first one. The next book I read was the second book in the series, and that is Breaking Point by Kristen Simmons. And where is it? Oh, yeah, look. The bunny got a hold of it. But this book continues on where the second one left off. I'm obviously not going to talk too much about it, but I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. And the third book I read for review, and that is 3 by Kristen Simmons, which is the third and final book in the trilogy. Again, not going to talk very much about that, but it was a good ending to the series, and I also gave that one a 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was for a blog tour, and that was The Polaris Uprising by Jennifer Ibarra. This was an okay book. I really can't remember too much about it, if that says anything. But it was about a girl who is about to take over her father's position as president for this world that they live on, and it's very dystopian-ish. People are taken care of from the minute they're born for everything they need, but of course there are prices to pay for this, and the girl's sort of figuring this out. It was okay. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. And the last book I read, which I actually finished on March 1st, but it was like the last 30 pages, was Mind Games by Kristen Simmons. This book was fantastic. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. It's about a girl named Fia and her sister named Annie. Her sister Annie is blind, but she has visions of the future, and Fia has perfect instincts. The book switches between the points of view of both of them, and it also changes in timeline. So one chapter would be Fia 3 years ago, and the next one might be Annie on Monday morning, and then, you know, back and forth like that. Which if you weren't paying attention, you could get a little confused on, but as long as you were paying attention to it, then it was good. But they're at this school, and yeah, I really don't want to give anything away, so that's all I'm going to say about it. But I give it a 5 stars, and I recommend that you read this book. And that's it. That's all I read. That's all I read for the month of February. And I'm happy with that, even though I didn't get the whole 28 books. That's okay. I wasn't planning on actually reading all 28 books, so reading 13, I am perfectly happy with that. So, yeah, now on to the TBR. So my TBR for this month, I've actually already read 2 books, so I'm not going to mention those. You're just going to have to wait till March's TBR to see those. But I am reading a lot of review books. I'm still trying to catch myself up on that. So I'm not really going to go through the synopsis of all of them. But the first book I'm reading is Nil by Lynn Matson. And I believe it's about a bunch of kids on an island. I can't even remember, honestly. I can't remember. I'm so bad. But I do have this for a review from NetGalley, so I will definitely be reading that. I will also be reading Panic by Lauren Oliver. This book was a recent release, and I think it's about a game that kids play, and they call it Panic maybe. Again, I can't really remember, but I will definitely be reading that. I'll be reading Faking Normal by Courtney Stevens. This is another new release book, and I think it's about a girl. Something happens to her, and she's like trying to pretend that everything's fine. I'm doing a really bad job at describing all of these books. But yeah, so the books from my physical bookshelf that I'll be reading Under the Never Sky by Veronica Rossi. This was one of my books that I would have liked to finish for my 28 days, but didn't happen. So yeah, this is one of the books that I will be reading, along with Through the Evernight, also by Veronica Rossi. This is book 2 in the trilogy. And then I have book 3, Into the Still Blue, for review, and I will hopefully be reading that one. I will be also reading Soul Control by C. Elizabeth, which I am on the blog tour for, and Peaceful Genocide by J.A. Reynolds. I'm also on a blog tour for that, so those are 2 books I will definitely be reading this month. The last book I will be reading, which I think comes out at the very end of March, I think it comes out like the 25th or something, is Wanderers by Susan Kim and Lawrence Clavin. This is the sequel to Wasteland, which I actually wasn't the biggest fan of, but I like to give books, you know, if it's a series or a trilogy or whatever, and even if I didn't like the first book, I like to read the second book just in case it gets better, you know, and if I don't like it, you know, if I don't like this book, then I'll give up on the series. I'm fine with that. But I still like, you know, I like to give them a second chance. Same with authors. If I don't like their first book that I read, I always try to give them a second chance. And then if I have extra time at the end of the month, I would really like to read at least 15 books, but if I read 10, then I'm fine with that. But I would like to get up to 15 books, which is 2 more than last month. So if I get up that high, then I think I'm just going to pick a random book off the shelf. I don't know. We'll see. But let me know in the comments below what you were reading this month. If you read any of the books I mentioned, what you thought of them. No spoilers, please, as usual. And I will see you guys later. Bye.